Greetings and welcome to St. John Chrysostom Church in Wallingford. St. John's is a beautiful church, and when you enter, the sanctuary and altar immediately become the focus of your attention, as is customary in churches. However, you soon realize that you are surrounded by a spectacular array of stained glass windows that encompass and highlight the entire space, giving it an air of lightness and rich, bright color. These stained glass windows tell us about the 7 sacraments of the church and also about 7 saints whose lives were devoted to aiding and assisting the poor and marginalized in our world. Each window is unique and tells us a fascinating story while giving us something to think about. Food for thought, if you will, as we ponder God's greatness here in our lives each day. Let's take a look at the window entitled St. Vincent de Paul and see what it reveals to us. Vincent de Paul was born in 1581 to a poor peasant family in the village of Bowie, France, most likely in the small cottage we see in this undated, uncredited photograph. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1600, and in 1605, while on a ship to the Mediterranean, he was captured and enslaved and brought to Tunisia in Africa. 2 years later, he escaped and returned to France, and soon afterward, he began his life's mission of aiding and assisting the poor by preaching to them, feeding them, and building hospitals for them, as we see in this 1876 painting by the French artist Jean-Jules Antoine Lecomte de Nuit. In the painting, we see Vincent de Paul preaching the gospel to the poor in Paris. Notice also the angel next to him, holding the Eucharist for all to gaze upon. And above, we see the child Jesus resting in his mother's lap, giving his blessing to Vincent de Paul. His fame spread all over Europe, and in 1625, he formed the Congregation of Priests of the Mission, which we now call the Vincentians. Soon thereafter, he confounded the Daughters of Charity, a group of religious sisters dedicated to works of charity, together with Saint Louise de Marillac, as seen in this undated, uncredited painting of Vincent and Louise ministering to the needs of the poor children of Paris. Together, their motto was, "Whose convent is the sick room? Whose chapel is the parish church? Whose cloister is the streets of the city?" One of the Bible passages that motivated him greatly in his works of charity was chapter 25, verses 34 to 40 of the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus said to his followers, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. A stranger, and you welcomed me. Naked, and you clothed me. Ill, and you cared for me. In prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him and say, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? When did we find you ill or in prison and visit you?' And the king will say to them in reply, 'Amen, I say to you, whatever you did for one of these least brothers or sisters of mine, you did for me.'" Vincent de Paul worked his entire priestly life assisting the poor throughout France and Europe. And although he's portrayed in this 17th century portrait by the French artist Simone Francois de Tours as smiling, he ached and worked tirelessly to aid the poor and suffering until his death in 1660 at age 79. Vincent de Paul was canonized in sainthood in 1737 by Pope Clement XII. In 1833, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul was established, and since that time has provided the charitable assistance to individuals and communities throughout the world, including here in the United States. Today, the church celebrates its feast day on September 27th each year. Isn't it interesting how closely our stained glass window resembles the image of St. Vincent de Paul in this undated, uncredited painting to the left? In our window, it appears as though the young girl standing in front of him and the young boy in his arm are both holding out their hands to receive his blessing. Maybe they were hungry and he gave them food to eat. Or maybe they were thirsty and he gave them drink. What do you think? Finally, notice the house at the bottom of the window. Does it look familiar? Perhaps it's a depiction of the house where St. Vincent de Paul was born in Bowie, France, that we saw earlier. Or perhaps the depiction of one of the many hospitals or orphanages that he and St. Louis de Marillac founded. Or perhaps even one of the many mission centers that members of the St. Vincent de Paul Society have constructed and continue to operate throughout the world today. What do you think? Thank you for watching and listening to the story of St. Vincent de Paul as depicted in the stained glass window. Next time you come to St. John's, stop over and take a look at it and see if you notice something new in it. Something nobody else ever saw before. Something you can share with your family and friends. God bless you.